Hello, welcome to Zigmatech Learning Hub. I'll be your instructor for biology. For this class, we are going to be taking our exercises from the ExamGuide app. Now, if you don't already have this installed in your device, I would like you to download the app in order to follow along in this class. Now, ExamGuide is a leading educational app that helps students prepare adequately for various exams. Exams such as the UTME, the post-UTME, WAEC, GCE, IJMB, KCPE, JUPEB, KCPE. In the junior sections, we also have the BECE, we have the SSCE, and so much more. Now, you can download the app from www.examguide.com or you visit the Google Play Store to download. Now, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to update yourselves on new videos that will be coming up. Now, if you're ready for this class, let's get started. Today, we're going to be looking at relevance of biology to agriculture. Relevance of biology to agriculture. Now, in this particular topic, we are going to be actually looking at some subtopics. We're going to be talking about classifications of plants botanically, though we have treated it before. But in the case of this particular class, we're going to be briefly discussing it again. And then also, we're also going to be looking at classification of plants agriculturally and also classifications of plants based on their life cycle. And then we're also going to be looking at some effects of agricultural activities on ecological system or the ecosystem. Okay. Also, by the end of this particular class, you are expected to note some things. One of them, you should be able to classify plants botanically. You should also be able to classify plants agriculturally, and you should also be able to classify plants based on their life cycle. And also number 4, you should be able to outline some effects of agricultural activities on the ecological system. All right, now if you are set, let's move into this. Now, first of all, we're going to be looking at botanical classifications of plants. Now, I remember I told you that plants fall under a particular kingdom, which is called Kingdom Plantae. And under Kingdom Plantae, we have several divisions. And these divisions are 3. Now, the first division under Kingdom Plantae is THALLOPHYTES. So we have THALLOPHYTES as number 1. We have BRYOPHYTES as number 2. And then we have TRACHEOPHYTES as number 3. Now, let's look at what we call THALLOPHYTES, or what THALLOPHYTES are all about. Now, looking at THALLOPHYTES, I'm going to give you 2 major characteristics of THALLOPHYTES. Number 1 is that THALLOPHYTES are non-vascular plants. They are non-vascular plants. Now, when we say a plant is non-vascular, it means that the plant does not have what we call vascular bundles. Examples of vascular bundles include what we call the cambium, we have the phloem, and then we have the xylem. Now, the xylem and the phloem play a major role in conduction or transportation of both food substances, dissolved mineral salts, as well as water. Now, any plant that does not have these vascular bundles are referred to as non-vascular plants. So, THALLOPHYTES are actually non-vascular plants because of the absence of phloem, xylem, and if possible, cambium. And then number 2 characteristics to note about THALLOPHYTES is that THALLOPHYTES do not have roots, they don't have stems, neither do they have leaves. No roots, no stems, no leaves. THALLOPHYTES are also further subdivided into 3 major groups. We have what we call the rhodophyta. Another name for rhodophyta is red algae. Then we also have the chlorophyta, which is called the green algae. We have the phaeophyta, which is called the brown algae. Now, you can see that THALLOPHYTES are simply algae. Now, examples of some THALLOPHYTES include, we have the Chlamydomonas, we have Spirogyra, we have volvox. They all fall under this set of plants. We also have the diatoms, which is microscopic, the diatoms. They fall under THALLOPHYTES, okay? Now, the next is BRYOPHYTES. BRYOPHYTES. Now, BRYOPHYTES, we also have two characteristics. We can compare them with THALLOPHYTES. In terms of BRYOPHYTES, BRYOPHYTES are also non-vascular plants. It simply means that the plant does not contain xylem, neither does it have phloem in it. Number two is that BRYOPHYTEs, they are, please take note of this, BRYOPHYTEs do not have true roots, stems, nor leaves. It simply means that they have structures that looks like roots, they have structures that looks like stems, and they have structures that looks like leaves. Unlike THALLOPHYTEs that do not have at all, they don't have roots, they do not have stems, neither do they have leaves. But in terms of BRYOPHYTEs, you can see the existence of structures that looks like roots, stems, and leaves. And so we can say they do not have true roots, true stems, nor true leaves. Examples of BRYOPHYTEs include the moss and the liverwort, moss and liverwort. Now, the third division in Kingdom Plantae, or in the classifications of plants botanically, is what we call the Tracheophytes. Now, the Tracheophytes, if we compare it with THALLOPHYTEs and BRYOPHYTEs, Tracheophytes are vascular plants. And also Tracheophytes, they have true roots, stems, and leaves. You see the difference. THALLOPHYTEs, no vascular plants, no roots, no stem, no leaves. And BRYOPHYTE, no non-vascular plants, but they have structures that looks like root, stems, and leaves. But in Tracheophytes, they are vascular plants and they have true roots, stems, and leaves. Tracheophytes also can further be subdivided into what we call pteridophytes and spermatophytes. Now, if you look at pteridophytes, I will bring up about maybe one or two differences between pteridophytes and then spermatophytes. Now, one of the characteristics of pteridophytes is that it is a non-flowering plant, and the other one is that it is a non-seed producing plant. Non-flowering plants, non-seed producing plants. Now, examples of pteridophytes, we have the ferns, we have the phelimas, and so on. They fall under pteridophytes. Now, looking at spermatophytes. Spermatophytes, they are flowering plants and they are also seed-producing plants. Please take note of the difference between the two. Spermatophytes are flowering plants. They are also seed-producing plants. But in terms of pteridophytes, non-flowering, non-seed producing. Spermatophytes are further subdivided into two main groups or class or divisions, which are called gymnosperms and angiosperms. Now, looking at gymnosperms, we can also pick out two major characteristics between gymnosperms and angiosperms. Now, in terms of gymnosperms, gymnosperms are plants that produce naked seeds. They produce naked seeds. It simply means that their seeds are not covered. Then another second characteristics of gymnosperms is that their seeds are not enveloped. In other words, they are naked seeds. They are not enveloped. Now, seeds that are enveloped are seeds that contain or that are covered with an ovary, covered with a fruit, or you can call it an ovary. Now, any seed that does not have a covering of a fruit or an ovary is referred to as a naked seed. Gymnosperms are naked, or they bear naked seeds. Examples of gymnosperms, we have pines, we have the conifers, and so on. Now, these seeds are called cones. We call them cones in biology. We call those seeds cones. So anytime you see a particular seed that is cone-like, you can check our previous videos and see the structure of the gymnosperms bearing seeds that are called cones. Then we have the angiosperms. The angiosperms, if we compare them with the gymnosperms, angiosperms, they do not produce naked seeds. Rather, their seeds are enveloped in a fruit. Their seeds are enveloped in a fruit. Now we have two types of angiosperms, or divisions or subdivisions of angiosperms. We have the monocotyledonous plants, and then we have the dicotyledonous plants. Monocotyledonous plants, dicotyledonous plants. Now the monocotyledonous plants, I'm going to also give you two characteristics based on the monocotyledonous plants. Number one is that their leaves have what we call parallel venation. It has parallel venation. If you check the structure of the leaves, the veins are parallel. They are not net. They are parallel. Another thing again is in their root formation, their root system. In monocotyledonous plants, they have fibrous root system. They have fibrous root system. Also, another characteristics of monocotyledonous plant is that monocotyledonous plant, as the name implies, mono means one, cotyledon means seed leaf. It simply means that monocotyledonous plants are plants with only one seed leaf. Plants with only one seed leaf. Examples of monocotyledonous plants, we have the likes of maize, we have rice. Most of the cereals, they fall under monocotyledonous plants. We have maize, we have rice, we have oil palm trees, we have guinea grasses, and so on. These are examples of monocotyledonous plants. And then we also have the dicotyledonous plants. If we are comparing it with that of the monocotyledonous plants, dicotyledonous plants, their leaves have what we call net venation. Net venation. If you pick the leaf of an orange tree or a mango tree, check how the leaves are arranged. That arrangement, we call that net venation. Net venation. Another thing again is based on their root system. In monocotyledonous plants, we said they have fibrous root system, but in dicotyledonous plants, they have tap root system. Tap root system. Another thing again to take note of in terms of their characteristics is in the name dicotyledonous plant. Di simply refers to two. Cotyledon simply refers to seed leaf. So we can say dicotyledonous plants have two seed leaves. They have two seed leaves. Now, having gotten these classifications of plants botanically, let's look at classifications of plants agriculturally. Remember, we said that plants can be classified into three. We have botanical classification, we have agricultural classification, and we have classification based on life cycle. So the next is agricultural classifications of plants. Now, plants agriculturally can be classified into so many groups or divisions. But we're going to be looking at just very few of them. Number one, we have what we call cereals. Plants can be classified into what we call cereals. Now, what are cereal plants? Cereal plants are plants that provide carbohydrates when they are eaten. They provide carbohydrates when they are eaten. Now, examples of cereal plants include, we have rice, we have maize, we have wheat, we have sorghums, etc. These are examples of cereal plants. Now, number two is what we call grains, legumes, or grains, legumes. Another name for legumes is called pulses. Another name for legume is pulses. Now, what are pulses or legumes? Now, pulses are actually plants that provide protein when they are eaten. They provide proteins when they are eaten. Examples, we have the beans, we have soya beans, we have groundnuts, and so on. These are referred to as legumes or pulses. Number three is root and tuber plants. Roots and tuber plants. Now, these roots and tuber plants, they produce tubers under the ground, and they also provide carbohydrates when they are eaten. All right. Examples include, we have the yam, we have the potato, we have the cocoyam, and so on. These all fall under roots and tubers. We also have number four, which is called vegetables. Vegetables. Now, vegetables, They provide vitamins and minerals. They provide vitamins and minerals when eaten. Examples of vegetables, we have tomato, we have the spinach, we have okra, we have cabbage, and so on. These are examples of vegetable plants. And then also we have what we call the fruit plants. Remember, what we're looking at is agricultural classifications of plants. Number 5, we have the root plants. We have the root plant. Now, the root plants are plants that produce or provide vitamins and minerals when eaten. They provide vitamins and minerals when eaten. Examples of fruit plants include apples, we have the orange, we have the mango, we have the pawpaw, and so on. These all are called fruit plants. Number 6 on the list is beverage plants. Beverage plants. Now, beverage plants are plants that provide food drinks when processed into finished products. They provide food drinks when processed into finished products. Examples include the coffee plant. We also have the cola plant. All right, the coffee plant and the cola plants are examples of beverage plants. Number 7 is the spices plant. The spices plants. They also provide vitamins and minerals when eaten. Examples of spices plant include the ginger, we have the onions, we have the garlic, and so on, the turmeric. They fall under this spices plant. Number 8 on the list is oil plants. Oil plants. Now, oil plants are actually plants that provide oil when processed into finished products. They provide oil when processed into finished products. We have examples like granules. We also have the oil palm. We have melon. We have coconuts, etc. They provide oil when processed into finished products. And then number 9, we have what we call the fiber plant. Fiber plant. Now, the fiber plant are actually used for making clothes. They're used for making clothes, ropes, and even bags, okay? Now, examples of plants in this category, on this classification of plant, we have the cotton plant, as you can see on the screen. That is a cotton plant. We also have a hemp, we have the kinaf, and so on. These are plants that that can be used actually in making clothes, bags, ropes, and so on. And then finally, we have what we call the latex plant. Now, the latex plant, they provide white sticky liquids. And this white sticky liquid is what we call latex. And this latex can be used in plastic industries and so many other industries to make plastics and rubbers. Examples include the rubber plant. We have a plant that is called rubber plant. So that is all you need to know for now based on agricultural classifications of plants. Now, the last classification of plant is classification based on life cycle. Classification based on life cycle. Now, we have several classifications based on life cycle. We have about three classifications of plants based on their life cycle. Number 1, we have what we call the annual plant. The annual plant. Number 2, we have what we call the biennial plant. Biennial plant. And number 3, we have what we call the perennial plant. I repeat, annual, biennial, and perennial plants. Now let's take a look at what we call annual plants. Now, annual plants, as the name implies, annual, a year. So annual plants are plants that complete their life cycle. That is, they are born, if I may say, and they die within that period of life cycle or lifespan. So they complete their lifespan or life cycle within 1 year. Within 1 year. Examples include most of the cereals. Most of the cereals fall under this category. We have the maize, we have the rice, even the vegetables, they fall under this category. So they are plants that complete their life cycle within 1 year. Number 2 is what we call the biennial plants. Biennial plants. Now, biennial plants are plants that complete their life cycle within 2 years. Within 2 years. Now, examples include the pepper, we have the carrots, we have the garlic, etc. They complete their life cycle within 2 years. And then number 3, which is the last, is called perennial plants. Perennial plants. Now, perennial plants are actually plants that complete their life cycle within more than 2 years or in more than 2 years. They complete their life cycle. It can be 3 years, it can be 4 years, it can be 5 years, it can be 50, it can be 60, because there are plants that have lived up to 150 years old plants. So all those plants, they fall under perennial plants. Now, examples of perennial plants include orange, we have mango, we have the oil palm, we have the iroko plant, or tree or plant, and so on. These are perennial plants. Now, let's quickly move into what we call effects of agricultural activities on ecological system. Effects of agricultural activities on ecological system. Now, there are several agricultural activities, things that takes place in agriculture, okay, or that affects living organisms as well as animals and plants, okay, and that has effect on the ecosystem. That has effect on the ecosystem. Now, we're going to be looking at some of them. Number 1 on the list here is deforestation. Deforestation. Now, what is deforestation? Deforestation can simply be defined as the indiscriminate felling of trees without replacement. Now, this one has to do with human activities, falling down trees indiscriminately without replacing them by replanting, okay? So, indiscriminate falling of trees without replacement. Now, these have several effects on the ecological system. Number 1 effect deforestation has on the ecosystem is that it encourages soil erosion. And soil erosion is simply the washing away of the top layer of the soil. So it encourages soil erosion. Number 2 is that it reduces the humus content of the soil. Yes, because as the erosion is taking place on the soil, most of the useful materials, most of the organic content or matter or humus that is in the soil are being washed away. Number 3 is that it may lead to desertification. It simply means that deforestation brings about desert encroachment. It leads to desertification. So if a particular place deforestation is high, there is every tendency in no distant time that place can become a desert. All right. So that is the number 3 effect of deforestation on the ecological system. Number 2 here is bush burning. Bush burning. And bush burning is simply setting off fire on bushes in order to clear out vegetation. Now, you'll find this practice, agricultural practice, mostly in African countries, okay? Mostly in African countries where farmers might not be so, will I say, have so much capital, may not be so capital intensive to employ the use of machineries, okay? Machineries to clear a particular huge piece of land. So one of the best way they feel they can actually clear out vegetation in order to carry out farming practices is bush burning. Yes, it is very fast, but it has several negative effects on the ecosystem. One of the negative effects it has on the ecosystem is that it destroys organic matter in the soil. Yes, it destroys organic matter in the soil. Number 2, it also destroys soil organisms. Yes, it destroys soil organisms. Number 3, as you keep burning, or bush burning brings about pollution, air pollution. It pollutes the atmosphere with smoke. It causes air pollution. And time will fail us to start looking at some of the negative effects of air pollution. It has so much negativity. Number 3 is that it exposes the soil to erosion and leaching. it exposes the soil to erosion and leaching. The reason is simple. By the time you clear all the vegetations on a particular farmland or a particular piece of land, you leave the land bare. And leaving the land bare is risking soil erosion as well as what? Leaching of the soil. Number 3 is overgrazing. Overgrazing. Now, overgrazing is actually a condition in which more animals are put into a particular piece of land to graze a small piece of land. You put more animals to graze a small piece of land. Now, once those animals graze that particular piece of land, they will leave it bare. They tend to wipe out everything that looks like vegetation. Now, it exposes, like we've said before in terms of bush burning, it exposes the soil to what? Erosion. It exposes the soil to erosion. Also, it destroys the soil texture. But in the midst of this, there is also some advantages we can see in this. And number 3 effect is probably like an advantage in the sense that the animal droppings can help to improve soil fertility. Animal droppings can also help to improve soil fertility. Number 4 is what we call tillage. Number 4 is tillage. By definition, tillage is simply the breaking up of the soil in preparation for planting. Breaking up the soil in preparation for planting. Now, some of the effects of breaking up the soil in preparation for planting is that it helps to loosen the soil. It helps to loosen the soil. Number 2 is that it changes the structure and texture of the soil. And then number 3, it exposes soil organisms and may kill them in the process. Very correct. It will expose soil organisms and then also kill them in the process. And then number 5 is application of chemicals. Application of chemicals is also a farming activity. Farmers apply fertilizers, farmers apply herbicides and pesticides to help control pests or also improve soil fertility and so on. So there is application of chemicals. Now, what are some of the effects of applying chemicals to farmlands, and how does it have effect in the ecological system? Number 1 is that it reduces the population of target insects and pests. Yes, it reduces the populations of target insects and pests. By the time you keep spraying all these pesticides and herbicides, it affects the number or population of insects and pests in that particular piece of land or the habitat. Number 2 is that it supplements nutrient content of the soil. That is the application of fertilizer. It helps to supplement the nutrient content of the soil. And then number 3, excessive use of pesticide is not really good. It may destroy crops. Excessive use of pesticides and herbicides may destroy crops. And now this brings us to the end of this particular class on relevance of biology to agriculture. Now let's take a look at some questions from our ExamGuide app. Just very few questions. Number 1, we said that maize grains are best stored against insect attacks by, maize grains are best stored against insect attacks by, is it covering with leaves, storing in the rooms, keeping it in a silo, leaving them on their cobs? I think the correct answer is C, keeping them in a silo. All right, so that is one of the best ways to store maize grains, though we've not discussed this. Then number 2, look at this. One important characteristics of green plants when we're talking about classifications of plants. One important characteristics of green plants is that they are autotrophic. It is not because they possess specialized sense organs, no. It's not because they respond slowly to stimuli, no. It is not because they are usually motile. In fact, plants are not motile plants are actually not motile. So the one that is one of the most important characteristics of green plants is that they are autotrophic. Autotrophic simply means that they can manufacture their own food. they can manufacture their own food. Now let's take a look at one other question, and this is question 4. The importance of practicing crop rotation. Crop rotation is also one of the agricultural activities, one of the important agricultural activities, crop rotation. So one of the options here says to maintain fertility of the soil. The second option says ensure growth of cash crops. Option C says improve the nutritional value of crops. And option D says control soil erosion. One of the importance of practicing crop rotation is to maintain soil fertility. Thank you for participating in today's class. You can practice more questions using your ExamGuide app. The app scores and gives a detailed explanation of all the questions at the end of your practice test. You can also learn particular topics of interest with different modes like study mode, mock mode, and even practice mode. It also has other features that makes learning very fun. Now, it is a must for all serious students. Download from www.examguide.com if you don't have it yet. See you in the next class. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels, hit the notification bell, and share the videos to your loved ones and friends that will benefit from it. Bye for now.